Hello, and welcome to Change the Face of Yoga, teaching toddlers through golden oldies. I'm very excited to be talking to lots of yoga teachers who will explain their passion for teaching yoga to students with different ages, physical fitness levels, wellness levels, and different goals. They will explain the benefits of yoga for these students and will be including teacher tips and pose modifications. I am Stephanie Cunningham of Yoga Lightness, and I've been teaching over 50s for 10 years. So this area is my passion and the passion of many other yoga teachers that you will be listening to in this series. Thank you so much for listening, and let's get started. This is the 121st episode of Changing the Face of Yoga, and my guest today is Ayanna Parrent. She is the owner and founder of Befree Coaching and Wellness, a wellness center whose mission is to change people's lives through movement, mindfulness, and fun. She is a licensed independent clinical social worker, registered yoga teacher, and certified fitness instructor in multiple areas. Her goal is to help people heal from issues such as trauma, addiction, depression, and other issues that get in the way of people living their best lives. Welcome. And is there anything you'd like to add to that introduction?
No. Hi. That was wonderful. Well done.
Good. Now, you say that BeFreeWell is a wellness community, and you also offer yoga classes there. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, good. What I really wanted to start the podcast with is this great idea that you gave me, which is that you're really committed to making movement, fitness classes, and yoga classes accessible to all, and that you've designed your studio to include people of color, men, and larger bodies. So can we just go into that a little bit about, well, first of all, why do you think that's important?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think that's actually most important, just coming from a personal standpoint, that yoga really helped me to heal personally and change my life. And I'm a person of color. And I just think that what I was seeing in studios, particularly my own personal journey and just talking with friends, it became particularly hard when you would go to studios and it was predominantly mainly white women, thin white women, and not a ton of larger bodies, not a ton of diversity. There was men, but they're, without trying to stereotype, there was like really hardcore men. Super, they're like doing handstands and it wasn't like
one-handed handstands, yes.
Right. I was like, oh my God, like, wow, okay. With their six packs, their shirt off, like I just couldn't. So I started, just on a personal journey of yoga myself. So I'm a person in recovery. And so it really helped me with addiction and just to really help me with my thoughts and sort of controlling negative images of myself, or anything negative. It really was, the catalyst to releasing some of that. So the movement piece is really important. However, I feel like the mindfulness is the key to yoga. And so I feel like a lot of it's become certainly commercialized and, all these clothes and stuff, or who really cares, and mats are just so expensive, and yoga teacher trainings are a gazillion dollars, which would certainly block out any person of color or person that doesn't have a lot of money. So I was just finding that in order to really heal some groups of people that really need it, we have to look at it in a different way and sort of offer it in a different way and talk about it in a different way that would speak to certain communities that otherwise might not access it. So I just sort of found that as my mission as I opened my studio.
Okay, great. And what are the specific things that you're doing that is making it more accessible?
So I do a lot of marketing to communities of color. So I live on Cape Cod right now. So it's not a huge, diverse community, but there are places, where people are. So I just make myself available. I really work hard to market to those areas, offer different discounts, or keeping just prices low that you can access that, or giving discounts to certain communities that would allow them to access it. And again, I also put in my marketing and everything that you'll see publicly that I write in there that, it's for all bodies, it's for diversity, it's for people of color, so that when you actually go to the website or look at any market materials, you can see that this is going to be like an inclusive place. So I've had people call, which I love, to be like, I saw this. Is this true?
Oh.
Yeah, so people, because I've had people that are larger bodies. It's hard to walk into a place, not only am I saying that, it's like, is that true? Like, how are you doing that? So I've had people call, which I totally love and appreciate. And, their experience has been great. I've just asked for feedback as well. Just so that you can still offer yoga, you can still offer vinyasa, but you can offer it as such in a way where all bodies can, access different poses. So you don't have to be so rigorous. It doesn't have to be, you can show modifications. You can adapt it so that one can do. You can, certainly design sequences if, you have enough knowledge and background that pretty much anybody can do. But you have to have that in mind. You can't sort of just, teach, a vinyasa class and expect all bodies to do it. So if I say that, I really have to hold myself accountable and the community accountable for that. So, that's in my teachers too. When I hire people, I'm very clear that I talk about the mission of the studio first. It's, this is who we are. This is who we're accessible to. We treat everybody, with respect, and we're looking for people that might not necessarily come to yoga. We're looking to heal those communities particularly.
I see. And these teachers that you're interviewing, do they feel comfortable that they have the knowledge to teach people who don't look like other yoga teachers?
So I've sought out ones that I've either taken their class or have familiarity with that are, so yeah.
Okay. So you really have a commitment there. I see that you don't sell high-end yoga clothes, but that you do offer larger sizes. Is another way to make people feel comfortable and welcome, shall we say?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think a lot of yoga studios will be, they'll say, yeah, we're for everybody. And then you go into their boutique and it's, you can't get larger than a size large, which for some people is, you can't fit into that. And that's okay. But to not carry it is sending a message that that's not who we want in here. And I know that's not for everybody, and that's not maybe people's intentions, because I certainly have wonderful friends that, have amazing boutiques and that are yoga teachers and yoga studio owners. But I do think we really have to be careful of that. And calling it, so here's my other thing that I wonder what people think about this is, in terms of accessibility, calling it a community house. So yoga studios have a class that's called a community class.
Mm-hmm.
So it's where they would maybe offer it for $10, saying that's the community class for everybody.
Yeah.
So I struggle with that because I'm like, why would you? That sort of is communicating that you're separating people out in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So is that the class for people that, can afford it, the $10, and, or is it not dumbed down sounds bad, but is it a different type of yoga? What is the community class that we're offering and how is that different? Is it just the price? And if it's just the price, why are we calling it a community class? Isn't every class for the community? So I just wrestle with some of this stuff. I'm like, I don't offer a quote community class. I make it accessible to everyone. And then I do get pushback from people a lot about well, you're running a business, you can't offer every class for, people that can't afford it and da-da-da, which I totally get. However, if that's your mission, then you need to stand by it. So, I do lots of other things on the side to support the business so that I can offer affordable packages to people. And I also say nobody's turned away. So there are scholarships available. I do partner with a nonprofit in Boston, Namaste Sober. And so they help with some of the things as well. So I feel like you can run a business and still be accessible, but you have to really work with the money in terms of holding your own self accountable as a studio owner to make sure that you really keep your doors open to everybody. It's hard. I totally understand. I get it. It's hard.
Yeah. I talked to someone else about that, and he said that the big studios and the big, the franchisees and the worldwide ones, or the all across the U.S., they really aren't very interested in being accessible because it's not financially rewarding, shall we say?
Right.
So,
yeah.
So are we saying that if it's really the small business owner that's going to be the one that may most likely be offering these kinds of classes?
I don't know. I'd love to not think that, because, I mean, it's hard. I mean, I'm a firm believer, and people, say different things to me all the time, but that you can make a lot of money and still be accessible and be community-based at the same time. There is a way, but you have to be really strategic about what that looks like, and you have to have it on paper, and you have to market it, and you have to hold yourself accountable as the leader. So okay. I'd like to think not, but right now I think that's probably what's happening. And money's a tricky thing. People make, they start small and they're like, yes, this is who we are. We're grassroots, right? And then they get bigger with money and values start to change. So there's a lot of attachment with money in terms of what that means and who you are. Mm-hmm. So I think people just I do a lot of work around that about staying grounded. Again, it's all the yoga stuff, staying grounded and in who I am while building something that's still accessible to people. But you have to keep that in the forefront. If you don't, then you lose the whole purpose of what you're doing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you said you have to work hard and you have to be creative. So what kinds of creative things if someone came to you and said, I want to start a studio and I want it to be really accessible, what kind of advice would you give them?
Oh, that's good. Someone just had this question. I just started a blog on it.
Good. We're on the same
halfway through. That's so funny. One is just really cultivating relationships with, communities of color. So I have a bunch of, white studio friends who ask me this all the time, like, what am I going to do? Just the only people around me are white people, and I don't know how to bridge that gap. There are ways to really cultivate that. This sounds crazy, but I just opened my studio and I went across the street to Stop and Shop and talked to the manager. And, there's a lot of employees there who are young people and people of color. There's a large, economic, development there that has a huge amount of people of color that work there. So I just offered a discount to their employees, and that was a huge benefit, for all of us. I'm across the street, come on over. And there you go. So, I mean, that's a creative way to really do it. You wouldn't necessarily think of like, oh, let me partner with Stop and Shop, as a studio owner of yoga, right?
No, I wouldn't have thought of that. That's true.
Right. But I was like, wait a second. Yeah. So my friend actually came, she was visiting from Boston, and she had that idea and was like, how about that? And I was like, oh, totally. And so I just started to think of ways in that, and people bring up churches, and churches are great. I go to the NAACP meetings on Cape Cod. I didn't know there was one, but as I was researching, where the people, I literally was just researching people on Cape Cod and where the demographics were. And so again, so that's a lot of work there, is just getting creative and then going to those meetings and then joining groups. There's lots of networking groups out there that, are more predominant than others, and people of color diversity, or it's also really about hiring staff. So people of color are going to go where there's leadership. So hiring staff that are people of color, and also diversity, having workshops. I did workshops, with co-led by, gay, lesbian, all the people that are representing diversity, making sure that they're a part of, the community in a leadership way. It's sort of how you look at racism and anti-racism work. I don't know if how you think about that stuff or other people think, but it's a similar model in terms of, looking at the paradigm, and really working with it so that you shift who's allowed to come in your doors by what you represent. The other thing so in terms of like clothing, so if you're a guy and you walk into these yoga studios and you're looking at these like, pants and stuff, like the boutique is clearly, catered towards women.
Yeah.
And there's a tiny section for men, and I get it. And again, it's just about thinking about who your studio is tailored to. So my studio, if you look at it, is pretty gender neutral. Like you wouldn't pick out necessarily one gender or the other. It's very very simple. It's not frilly. There isn't, there's no, and a lot of people that I work with, I work with a lot of veterans. I work with, a lot of people have PTSD and trauma, and that whole group. So in order to have them feel present, I work with people, who just come out of jails and really that community. So if we want those people to really access yoga, it's like, what would you think of, what would be welcoming to you when you come out of those environments? So you're not something super flashy, something super warm, but, not general specific. So that kind of thing. Those are the main things I've been thinking about in terms of, getting creative with being accessible. And then, just wiping out the community class and saying we're community based, and figuring out other ways to offer services at a lower rate to people that, couldn't afford it.
Yeah. So you said that
having larger sizes, have XXXXL.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So you said you partner with a nonprofit to provide some scholarship money for people to take classes who may not be able to afford very much. How's that working? I mean, is that sufficient for what you need, or do you think it's a good start?
It's a good start. It's it's sort of like I had two women the other day, single moms that were struggling and wanted to do. So I offer a life coaching program too, which is the mindfulness program. And people can take the fitness classes and movement classes while they're in the coaching program. So they really wanted to do the coaching, but couldn't afford it. So I reached out to them and just said, hey, listen, I have two women, who want to do the specialized program. And so we just communicate about what the needs are. How can we help each other out? What can I do? What can they do? So at least it's, we're able to offer stuff. I can still offer it. And then, as a business owner, not have to lose all the, general money going to somewhere else. It's a good start, but, I still have to get creative about, bringing in money in other ways, to not have to jack up prices so high, to still make it accessible. But yeah, it's a good start. It's a wonderful idea. And I think, it's hard being a business versus a nonprofit. You're still offering services and good things to people, but, the business model works for me right now. So, partnering is great.
Have you considered partnering with like the big companies? I mean, I understand that perhaps you don't want to do Lulamom, but or however you say that. I never have figured that out.
Yeah.
Someone said they were thinking about that, and I just wondered if that's really a viable thing.
I don't know. It gets tricky for me. Their mission really has to be on point,
Okay.
To do that, the people that I partner with now, their mission is, 100%. So it's, it's hard with larger companies. But it's something to think about for sure.
Okay. All right. You said that you are recovering, and I know that you are offering the Y12SR, and I had Nikki on earlier.
Oh, you did? I love her.
Yeah.
One of my favorite people of all time.
Isn't she fun? She really is.
Oh my God.
And so I thought it would be interesting because she, told me what she does and why she started and everything. And I thought it would be just interesting to see how you do it, how you at your studio from like, the grassroots kind of area. And I just to get both ends of the spectrum of that, because she was great, but I just wondered how it was working for you and your studio.
Yeah. So she, first of all, is like my favorite person of all time. When I took her training, it was just a weekend, but I literally could have taken way more from her. And in some ways, I learned more from that training than I did from my 200-hour yoga teacher training. And that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
So in terms of, she actually helped a lot with, in terms of making yoga accessible to everybody. Just sort of the way she teaches and describes things in a simple way, but you still get so much out of it, even though it's so simple. So I just learned a lot from that. And so I just implemented one day a week where I did like a Sunday afternoon class. And just make it for anybody that's either in recovery or has a loved one in recovery. And I almost do it restorative style. So we do like an open meeting, and I just pick a topic, or someone picks a topic, and we share. And then I just do a really gentle flow and end with a few restorative poses and try to just verbalize some of the issues that had come up in the meeting, and really just integrate the healing into it. And I've had probably more people that have loved ones in recovery that are actually in recovery. A few of my friends have come. But yeah, no, it's a wonderful, wonderful class. And I love it.
Okay. And it does add to your accessible mission, I would think.
Oh, totally. Yeah. She's an incredible individual.
Yes, she is.
Really everyone should take her course. Everybody. Everyone listening should really take it.
Gee, she got a free ad there. That's right.
I know.
Okay. So you feel like I mean, what I'm getting, and I'll make sure I'm doing this right, or I'm understanding, you've got a really strong mission, and you're really committed to keeping that mission front and center. And so that's affecting price. It's affecting who you hire. It's affecting who you try to attract. Is there anything else that you think is contributing?
I don't know. I mean, I think just what we haven't hit on is that it's just really important to, when you say that you're, having a community, it's really that, you're drawing in members of, any community. So like, you'll see in the studio versus other studios, you'll see diversity in there. So in order to create a community, you really sort of have to cultivate it. So I have a lot of like potlucks and, book clubs and, social gatherings. And, we're implementing a whole like first Friday night that's going to be, without alcohol, or, so to reaching out to people, lots of like dancing, hip hop, like different types of music that you're not necessarily going to get into, in an actual yoga studio. I am an actual yoga studio. That's why I'm laughing. So diversifying that a little bit. Yeah. And I know some people push back on me. They're like, well, it's not real yoga if you're playing like different music and do hip hop, which is very silly. I get that, why people are saying that, because it's not, quote, traditional. However, I think part of it, what people, this is what I wanted to say too, about being accessible. Some how do I say this in a way that doesn't sound bad? Like white cultures are and yoga studios, it's like if you walk in there, you feel like you can't be loud, you can't talk, you can't laugh. It's very structured in a way where, there's not a lot of vocal, boisterous talking. And lots of cultures with people of color are just naturally that way. And so I've heard that people have gone into spaces like that and feel like they've gotten like shunned, like, shh, don't like that, like, stop it. And they're like, I'm just talking. So to allow that to be okay. So I allow some banter in the actual class. I allow laughter. I create moments where there's laughter, but then I'm really conscious about the times where we need to be quiet and really settle in. But to not have it so serious in a way where you feel like, you don't belong if you don't fit that mold. If you're not a meditator that is, can sit there for a long period of time without, moving around or things like that. Just so really being aware of what community looks like. We all don't look the same. We all don't act the same. But being conscious of that, like what community really actually looks like. And then just making sure that you're cultivating, everybody's place.
Okay. No, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. But
yeah.
Yeah. It is very structured and often very serious in yoga studios. And I kind of will always want to do something that'll liven it up, but I refrain.
I know, it's not weird. I really just like feels strange. Like,
yeah, they're all just so serious, and you're thinking, oh, come on.
Right, like really, it's just yoga. Oh my God, like we can breathe and smile, and it's like, yeah. And some of this instruction too, which is great, but it's like sometimes it's taught in a way where you feel like you're doing it wrong. Like if the person comes over, it aligns you a certain way, or if there are just so many descriptions and how you're supposed to hold your body. There's not room for fluidity there. And there's room for conformity, and there's room for doing things the same way, and there's room for looking like somebody else. And that's not what we're talking about when I talk about yoga. It's really about cultivating the person, their own spirit, their own movement, and everybody's looks different. It's hard when I hear yoga teachers over and over again, like they'll see somebody not look necessarily the pose they're supposed to look in, and then keep describing it over and over. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, it's all right. Like,
yeah. I've worked with seniors, and after you've lived in a body for decades, it's very different from the body that's next to you, and so
oh my God,
fit into your own body. Really.
Right. And larger bodies look different in poses, and that's hard if you're not trained on that. Right. So sometimes yoga teachers will go over and try to fix and shift. And I'm like, ooh, nope, because they're fine just the way they are. And most 99.9 of the time, like larger bodies are strong, and they don't necessarily need manipulating or props or chairs or any of that. It's really more a comfort level on their part to just do what works for them, and just getting them used to that. That's all.
So we didn't really talk too much about that. I think you did allude to it, but it was, that you are teaching differently, or that you are addressing people who have not the typical yoga teacher body, shall we say. Yeah. And that, I'm sure, is also very important to feel comfortable. I know I've talked to people who are teaching and who have a larger body, and they said, that it just so often teachers didn't know what to do. They just said,
right. And then looked at people funny. Like, it's very clear when the yoga teacher doesn't know what to do with a larger body, unfortunately. Like, I get it. But then it gets this awkward moment in class. For both of them.
Well, that's it. Yeah. So.
And then
Okay.
So it's I'm lucky in the way of I'm trained in like 15 different fitness modalities. So yoga is just one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taught a variety of different dance, all kinds of stuff, aqua aerobics, with a variety of different bodies. Like aqua aerobics lends to a larger body, Zumba lends to a larger body. Some people think that. But so it's easier for me to kind of assess and work with that. But I also have done a lot of research and taken a lot of courses on that as well, just to make sure that I'm supporting that. And honestly, most of it is just not doing such intense vinyasas so that you're, not going up and down all the time. And if you are, modifying in a way where then you're up, but you're on your knees, and that, there's different ways where it's not this intense, you can still offer a power yoga class, let's say, and a larger body should be able to take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah. I don't know. I don't offer power classes to seniors. I will have to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see why.
Okay. I don't think I want to take a power class either when it comes to dance. But what I would like to do is give you the opportunity to either talk in more depth about something we discussed, or to actually introduce a new topic that you think is important for the listeners to know around this general podcast topic that we've been talking about.
I think just what I'd love to share with people is that like the reason I started my studio and the coaching that I do is just the powerfulness of mindfulness alone and movement. But that breath and connecting the mind, the body, and the spirit, just for people that are not familiar with yoga, is just such a powerful healing tool that I feel like gets missed if we don't. Like, I love your whole thing of like changing the shape of yoga. Like if we're not getting that out to the people that aren't used to that and don't know that that is, out there as like a healing tool. I just think it's so important for people, for yoga studios and whoever, just to make that available to those people. I mean, I think it's really hard, for men or, the veterans that I have. I mean, I get the veterans through my coaching program, which gets them into the studio. But otherwise, I'm not sure that they would be walking in just off the street. But it's so healing for trauma, for, women with domestic violence, all that. It's just like, for me, I feel like it's just the key to shifting your life in a positive direction that might not come in another way. So I'm also a licensed independent clinical social worker. Mm-hmm. So I did that for years and years. I did, traditional therapy. I worked in schools in a variety of different ways. And I wasn't finding that talk therapy was helpful anymore. So that's why I integrated the movement into the actual healing process so that people could discover a different way of healing the mind, the body, and the spirit as one. So I just wanted to share that.
All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me get Ayanna's contact details. Her email is AYANNAPARRENT at gmail.com. And her website is www.B, and it's just the letter B, freewell.com. Her Facebook is Befree Coaching and Wellness. Instagram, BeFreeWell. So if you would like to do a little more research, and I've looked at your website, it was quite helpful, just to see what Ayanna's doing. So thank you so much.
I also have a podcast that's
oh, do you? I didn't have that. Oh,
yeah, the Fit Fat Chat. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I forget to mention it. It's called the Fit Fat Chat. I do with my friend Christy. She's also a Zumba instructor. But we just started that to talk about just making movement in general accessible for everybody. So that'd be a great for your listeners. Wanted to check that out.
Yeah. What's it called again?
The Fit Fat Chat. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple. All of the places you find podcasts.
Fit Fat Chat.
So it's FITPHAT. Chat.
Oh, that kind of. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to. All right, I'll put that down.
You're like, that's not this language. I'm kidding.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, the Fit Fat Chat. So if anyone wants to check that out, that's
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It was great fun talking to you, and I think you have.
Oh, thanks for asking.
A really important topic, and I think this is a real good addition to kind of the general accessible conversation. So thank you so
I appreciate it.
Thank you for that wonderful interview. If you would like to be a guest on Changing the Face of Yoga, please go to my website, www.yogalightness.com.au, and under the Changing the Face of Yoga tab, you can complete Be Our Guest form. After reviewing the form and finding it applicable to this podcast, we will send you a link to schedule an interview. Please download, review, and tell your friends of any podcasts that are of interest to you and to them. If you would like to contact me, send an email to info@yogalightness.com.au. And thank you for listening to Changing the Face of Yoga.